Hello, everyone, and happy Friday, March 20th. I apologize for how late this video is coming out. I unfortunately injured my back yesterday, and so I have literally been laying in bed all day trying to get better. So I will be doing this little quick tutorial on factoring from my chair because I am still limited in what I can do. I do have my Star Wars Friday shirt on with my stuff down the side. And without further ado, here we go. So I've been monitoring your practice on IXL. Thank you so much for those of you who have been doing that. That's really awesome. I am going to end up extending this particular code to tomorrow, so I'll put that information in the email. These are the two types of trinomials that I noticed you were struggling with the most. So if you want to follow along, go ahead and write these two trinomials down. We have m squared minus m minus 30 and a squared minus 10a plus 9. I did notice that we were struggling with these two specifically, which is why I chose to go over these. All right, here we go. Again, feel free to pause the video at any time. Do this on your own, unpause and follow along. So what we're going to do is we're going to factor these, and then we're also going to multiply to check our work, because I cannot emphasize how important it is that you have the ability to do that. So the first thing that we're going to do is set up our structure for our answer. We know that when we're factoring, our answer is going to be a product of two binomials. When you're typing in your answer in IXL, you might have noticed you have to put in parentheses. If you don't put in parentheses, you will get it wrong. Okay, in addition to putting in the structure, I can also put in the first term in each binomial, because I know what times what is m squared and what times what is a squared. So over here, my first term is going to be m and n. Over here, I know my first terms are going to be a and a, whatever the variable is. Now we play the P's and Q's game. So what two numbers have a sum of the middle term and a product of the end term? That's another mistake that I was seeing, is that we are sometimes switching that and trying to find two numbers that have a product of the middle term and a sum of the end term. The middle term is always the sum, the end term is always the product, and I'll show you in the check why that is. Now this one is a little weird and it's been giving you some problems, and here's why. It's what two numbers have a sum of, and then you pause because you actually don't see a number in front of m. But if you remember in my classroom, there's all those posters everywhere that say, beware the hidden 1. So there is a number here, it just happens to be a hidden 1. So now we can play the game. What two numbers have a sum of -1 and a product of -30? Now, the more you play this game, the better you will get at it. If you know the product is negative, like -30, then you know that one of those two numbers has to be negative, the other one's going to be positive. Also, I know that a sum of -1 can only happen with two numbers that are right next to each other. Like 3 and 4 are 1 away from each other, 4 and 5 are 1 away from each other, etc. So if I'm thinking about 30, I'm not going to jump straight to 3 and 10, because yeah, 3 times 10 is 30, but there's no way to get a sum of -1 using 3 and 10. So what two numbers have a product of -30 that also happens to be 1 away from each other? 5 and 6. Now the question becomes, which of these is negative and which of these is positive? So if the sum is negative, that means the greater of these two must be negative. In other words, if I made -5 and +6, my answer would be +1, and that doesn't match my original expression. So my values of P and Q are +5 and -6. All right, and you can always switch the order, make it -6 and +5. We'll come back to this one and do our check in just a little bit. Let's take a look at the second one. Already set up our structure. Now we're going to play the P's and Q's game. Now I noticed that you were struggling with this one because the sum is negative and the product is positive. And you're thinking to yourself, how is that possible? Well, the only way to get a positive product and a negative sum is with two negative numbers. Now you might be thinking to yourself, yeah, but that still didn't work because -3 and -3, yeah, when I multiply them, I get 9, but when I add them, I can't get -10. Well, you're forgetting about a number that goes into every single number in existence. That number is 1. So 1 can go into everything. So anytime you're dealing with a product, always try 1, just to be sure. 1 times 9 is 9, and 1 plus 9 is 10, but we don't want 10, we want -10. So if I make both of those negative, let's see if it works. -1 plus -9 is -10. -1 times -9 is +9. And again, look, that looks a little weird. Order doesn't matter if you want to put -9 first and -1 second. All right, let's set this up for our checks. Okay, so I went ahead and did the multiply to check. On the first one, I used area model. Second one, I used double distribute. You can, again, check your checks with mine, but here's what I want to point out. Why is it that the middle term is the sum and the ending term is the product? Well, here's what happens when we multiply. If you look at this one, you're always going to end up multiplying the variable by the term. So m times -6 and m times +5. Those also happen to be our values of P and Q. And when I add those together, because that's my combined like terms, I end up with the middle term. So that's why it's find two numbers that have a sum of the middle term, because they will end up being combined. Over here, same thing. You end up multiplying a by -9 and -1 by a, and you're going to combine them into the middle term to get -10a. So that's why it's find two numbers that have a sum of the middle term, because that comes from combining like terms. Now, why is the last term the product? That comes from multiplying the two numbers in your binomial. You will always end up multiplying the second term, -6 times +5, and that will always result in your last term. Over here, -1 times -9 gives you +9. So that's why the middle term is the sum and the ending term is the product. All right, I hope that that was helpful. Please continue to email me with questions. Again, this assignment, this IXL code has been extended to tomorrow at midnight. So if you need a little bit more time to get those scores up, you have it, please. And if you don't have your IXL code, email me now because grades will go in Sunday morning. All right, stay safe and healthy out there. Wash your hands, and I'll talk to you on Monday.